Laurel Green, to be followed by Michael Wood and Jeremiah D'Souza.
Hi.
Hi, welcome.
The first thing I have is several hundred signatures on a petition. Some of them are hard copy, done out in front at East Trade Street, and some of them were done online. And so I'd like to first read what people signed to. We, the undersigned, support the free speech rights of Occupy Charlotte. We believe that the encampment at 600 East Trade Street should be allowed to continue as a form of political expression. We are currently living through a time of deep political and economic crisis. Our political system is at a standstill, with politicians in debt to their corporate sponsors. Meanwhile, economic inequality is at its highest point in history. The top 1% average over a whole big number in annual family income, while the bottom 90% averages just $31,000 annually. Given our media, money-dominated political system, this inequality exacerbates the lack of power that those at the bottom of our economic system. The citizens of Occupy Charlotte are camping out to raise these concerns, and their right to do so must be protected if we are to claim that this is a community that values democracy, that values government of, by, and for the people. While some city police forces have forcibly attacked local occupations, we hope that Charlotte will continue to follow the model of Irvine, California, where an ordinance was recently passed explicitly allowing their local occupation to continue. As Irvine's mayor, Sui Kang, said, it is important as a city to respect and facilitate free speech rights for everyone. To date, the City of Charlotte has allowed the protesters to stay at 600 East Trade Street. All we ask is that the city continue to do so, to support Occupy Charlotte's right to do so. In the words of the First Amendment, petition the government for a redress of grievances. So that's from several hundred Charlotteans. My comments on the ordinances are, I'm really concerned about the word intent. I'm concerned about empowering a police department to divine the intent of protesters. I think that's a setup that doesn't lead to a positive outcome. Cities all over the place have been trying to pass ordinances against protests and tried to legislate the protests away, and it's not working. And so I am suggesting that the City of Charlotte try something different and try dialogue. And so I'm going to try something different as a citizen. I'm coming here and I'm asking you to please represent me. Part of the reason why I'm part of Occupy Charlotte, as are a lot of other people, and we all have different reasons, I think this, what I learned as a child, what my daughter learned in the Charlotte school system, about what democracy was, about a representative democracy, it's failing. It's not working. So that's why I'm asking you. Please represent me.
Thank you. Very much. Michael Wood. Welcome, sir.
City Council, Mr. Mayor. I've heard some people say that they want their lawn back. The problem with that is that it's not your lawn. It's the people's lawn. It belongs to the citizens of the city of Charlotte and Mecklenburg County. And now you want to make an ordinance to take something else away from the people, to put it in a little glass jar so that people can see it, but never use it for its intended purpose. And you call it preserving it, much like something else you put in little glass jars. But it's an ugly sight, all these tents and their tarps. You can't help but notice them every time you go by. The point is to notice that they are not ignored even when they are silent. They're just camping in tents. That's not protesting. Why? Because you've never seen it before? A black woman refusing to give up her seat on a bus was not a form of protest until someone did it first. A group of young men sitting in a counter, refusing to leave until they were served, was not a form of protest until someone did it first. Sit-ins, marches, hunger strikes were not a form of protest until someone did it first. Peaceful, nonviolent, civil disobedience was not a form of protest until someone did it first. An opportunity exists for Charlotte to be the first to communicate, the first to cooperate, the first to act differently than the cities have before it. You are already on this path. Up until now, Charlotte has reacted differently than so many other cities in the U.S., and we have seen the fallout of the other cities reacting. As the DNC draws nearer, millions of eyes across the state and the nation will look at Charlotte and the actions of its leaders. And leaders you could be by being the first to recognize these Occupy protesters. Lead by initiating a dialogue between yourselves, the protesters, and CMPD to meet the needs of all three groups, both for the DNC as well as constitutional rights in general. Thank you, City Council. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Jeremiah D'Souza. To be followed by Peter Radicelli, Todd Zimmer, and Jennifer Mariano.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and the City Council. I spoke to you guys at your initiation. My problem is the fact that when you guys were sworn in, part of your swearing in was that you would uphold the Constitution of the state of North Carolina, as long as it did not infringe on the rights of the Constitution of the United States, which is what this ordinance would do. It would violate our rights to free speech and freedom of protest. This country was built on the backs of protesters. It was built on the backs of people standing up for what they believed in. If Dr. King did not go to jail, there would be no equal rights. If Muhammad Gandhi did not decide to go on a hunger strike, there would be no civil rights in India. They would not be an independent state. What you guys are proposing to do is protect the 1% by saying we'll just make them disappear like New York did with their homeless population where I came from. There's too many people out here that are struggling for you guys to go and pass an ordinance directly affecting us. It isn't going to affect the people on the city council. It isn't going to affect the people in South Park and Valentine. It's going to affect the people of the west side of Charlotte. It's going to affect the people of the south side of Charlotte, the people in the projects. It's going to affect the people who are on Tryon. Where are they going to go? Are you guys going to provide housing for them? No, you're going to go back to your glass houses and you're going to live your lives. Anybody who has ever gone down to 600 East Trade Street knows that we, out of all the protests, have never had a problem with the police. We've never had a problem with, the city. I've spoken to members of the council who agree with us. We have a plan enacted to put grass back in the city. We need to come together and we need to work together. We're not so far apart that we can't come to a consensus. This overnight occupation is not a bunch of campers. I have 2 jobs. I am a father. I am a veteran. But for this ordinance to pass is taking away my son's future and my grandchildren's future. This is wrong. Deep in your hearts, you know it's wrong. We're not here working against the city. We're in here because we believe there's social injustice.
Thank you. Peter. Yes, sir. Welcome. Welcome, sir.
Thank you. Thank you, members of the council, for hearing us tonight. My name is Todd Zimmer. I'm a native of Mecklenburg County. I grew up in Charlotte, and I learned about democracy and free speech in school here. And so I'm going to be somewhat naive and talk to you guys about that tonight. We live in a democracy, and we seek to be a beacon of what democracy looks like to the rest of the world. Our society's most treasured right of all is the right to free speech. When the world's eyes turn to Charlotte this fall, what are they going to see? The Democratic National Convention is supposed to represent the functioning of our democracy. Our system cannot function without freedom of speech, participation, and association, and events like the DNC should showcase those freedoms and the diverse opinions and perspectives that make our country great. Indeed, that's why we have protections for free speech, so that we can exercise them at forums like the Democratic National Convention. And it saddens me very, very greatly that members of this council seek to pass special laws that restrict free speech instead of protecting it. Many of the regulations proposed seriously challenge our First Amendment rights. If these regulations, which have been challenged by the ACLU, are passed, they clear the way for unreasonable searches and seizures, up to police to judge intent, which is a problem. It criminalizes the peaceful free speech members of our community have been free enough to enjoy at 600 East Trade Street for the past few months. And yes, camping overnight is a form of political speech. This same restriction against sleeping in public places criminalizes homelessness at a time when there's greatest need in our community. Bear in mind, these special restrictive laws will remain long after the DNC is ended. Finally, there's discussion of awarding protest permits through a content-neutral lottery. This process would criminalize the speech of those citizens who wish to participate in democracy but are not awarded a permit. Freedom of speech must be available to all who wish to enjoy that freedom. Mr. Hageman has said in the paper today he feels that he's been generous with regard to First Amendment rights. With all due respect, our freedom as Americans to demonstrate and participate in democracy should never be left up to generosity. Free speech and peaceful assembly should always be protected and should not be limited by this body or any others. Thank you.
Todd Zimmer. Todd Zimmer? Okay. I thought that was Peter. That's what he said. Okay.
Hi, y'all. My name's Jenny Marino. I think I'm probably going to echo a lot of what people have been saying tonight, but it's probably not a bad thing to hear it again. So I oppose this amendment to the ordinance that would basically limit our First Amendment rights. There's a lot of waving going on, trying to figure that out. Cool. So basically, this ordinance would remove our rights to free speech, to freedom of assembly, and obviously, there'll be a way to do a lottery so that certain protesters will be allowed to protest. But that effectively criminalizes everyone else who wants to protest. So essentially, you have to think about whether or not you're trying to create criminals at the DNC, and that's exactly what this ordinance would do. So take me, for example. I ride a bike, I keep my keys on a carabiner, and I intend to protest at the DNC. And under this ordinance, all of those things could be illegal, but that's all up to the decisions of police officers, and I don't really feel comfortable with that. So you'll be taking away the freedoms of people's speech and First Amendment rights. So consider that. Thanks.
Thank you.